Let's welcome on stage, or on the floor, Colm Diamond. He is much more than a client to me. We became friends.
So yeah, my name's Colm Diamond. I work in global procurement, and I'm going to talk to you quickly about how we've applied some of this stuff in different use cases. And I have the best time box of all, which is lunch in 25 minutes. So maybe if you could give me an eye on 10, 15 minutes, I've got my thing here. So maybe just before I start, can I just understand who's in the room? Do people have enough space to stand up? I'm not sure. Let's try it. So first, can you stand up if you're Mirko, always ready to go. So can you stand up if you're an external person that provides agile services to many companies? Good? Okay, you can sit down then. Can you stand up if you're an internal person? I would guess from your comment you're like a scrum master that does it internally in just one company, but just agile services. Good? Okay, you can sit down. And then, can you stand up if you're just a business person? Just somebody in the business. Good. All right. And so, can you stand up if you're in procurement? Oh my God, I'm always on my own. That's great, that's great. So we definitely have to connect because it's a very lonely position. So let me talk to you about our company, Roche. Many of you probably know about it. So we're one of the world's largest and, as I say, the best pharmaceutical company in the world. It's an old company. It's 126 years. The family still has a controlling interest. That gives us a different perspective on things. Our purpose is doing now what the patient needs next. We are a purpose-driven company. We can look at things more mid-term, long-term than other companies. It's also a very decentralized culture. So these are the different ways that we bring drugs to the market. And we have basically two parts of the organization. Pharmaceuticals, this is the drugs that help patients to recover from illnesses or live with illnesses, including, and I'm sure many of us have had this in our personal lives, including myself, a lot of cancer drugs, right? So this is very important. This is really important. And as important now as our diagnostics business, understanding if somebody has a disease. How do we get that early so that we can treat it? We then have all the normal functions to get that out to market, commercial, operations, et cetera. It's a very decentralized culture, which in some ways you'd think is really, really good for Agile. And there's been a big push in Roche for agility, to bring more innovation, to give the patient what they need. And everybody's trying to figure that out and what that could mean. That decentralization, you think, very, very good for Agile. I think in reality what it means working there is you have cultures within cultures within cultures, teams within teams within teams. We have 100,000 people that work for our organization all over the world. Yeah? So bringing that together is difficult. And procurement, as a function, we work with everybody. So this is just really quickly the journey that we've been on as our global procurement function. So we started and we centralized the function. So I'll try not to use too many procurement terms, but one probably most people will understand is category management. So this is really where we got our centralized category teams, right? So this is where we say, we in procurement look at the world, we try and give value to the business by saying, hey, you buy a lot of these types of services, how can we look at that across the entire organization to give the right partners, the right value, the right risk mitigation? So that's the category view, right? That's a good view to have. That's an important view to have. But what we found and what all procurement functions find and what the customers hear is you've got different customers, right? At a corporate level, they want that big value. They want that global view. Nobody's looking across the businesses. But for the people in the business, they want what they need, right? They want you to understand what they need at that time to do their job, yeah? And this is where the cultures and the cultures happens. So We then started to evolve, and with the push in Agile, we said, what does this mean for us? How do we go from traditional procurement to what we call next generation procurement? How does Agile fit into that? So this is where we are now, and I'll talk a little bit about the from and the to in a second, but to give you an idea of the organizational size. So now we've gone through, after our most recent transformation, and I think yesterday I heard somebody say, transformation doesn't just happen, it's just ongoing, it's a series of incremental change. That is definitely how it looks and feels with us. However, under our new structures I'll talk about now and how we work and how we're trying to become more agile and more customer-centric, this is what we look like. So we have 600 people across the globe, onshore versus onshore, kind of one-on-one, 16 billion addressable spend, and that cuts across all of those areas of the business. We buy all different types of things for all different types of people. And we have all of our normal things that we want in procurement, working capital targets, savings, et cetera. This is funny because often we get criticized or people look at procurement, you know what it's like. They say, savings, working capital. Like, that is part of our purpose. We're the biggest spenders in research and development in the world. Yeah? We make life-saving drugs. So we buy molecules with the cash that we free up that leads to people's lives being saved. It's easy to forget that connection, but it's there. Yeah? So this is what I mean by different customers have different needs. We can't forget about them. So it's really about trying to square what's in the middle and what's at the right time. So this is the from and the to, which didn't translate well, obviously. It's not as messy as this in my slide. But I don't need to read it off. I think, basically, like all procurement functions, we ask, are we procurement for procurement? I worked with our diagnostics business a lot for about a year and a half. I work globally, and as our team does, but I worked just with our diagnostics business for about a year and a half. And I remember at the time, one of the leaders in the function, he's like, the biggest thing we can say is, thank you, is stop talking to procurement, stop talking to each other, talk to us. Yeah, find out what we need. From savings into shareholder value, getting the bigger picture that the business needs, and moving from category management to solutions. Yeah. So this is what we mean by next generation procurement for us. Three statements, and one is, how do we become more customer centric? Yeah. 2, we still need to be efficient and effective. That doesn't go away. Not everything needs to be agile. Not everything needs to be innovation. Yeah. Just get better at stuff. If you just ask the business, they just want to buy stuff simply, right? Not everything needs a Scrum team. So finding out when you need that innovation, when you need that overhead, that's also just important for us as an organization. And then we deliver value beyond savings by understanding and solving problems. This is how we do it. So this is our organizational structure: chapters, networks, squads, and an enabler underneath. So the chapters, this is where we live. Yeah, this is our home. Yeah. So we have 3 chapters. We have our customer excellence. They're in charge of understanding the customer needs and providing that view across the customer. Yeah. They also give us access to the customer at the right time. One thing that is important for us when we're working with the business in particular is we want the scientists to work on the science. We talk about cross-functional teams a lot, yeah, in Agile. Like, we have to be careful with that, yeah? If they're working in a cross-functional team for a procurement thing, they're not working on the science. I have to be respectful of that. We absolutely do it, but it's when and how. Everything is gray, yeah? So customer excellence helps us to get those first questions, then bring in the right people, the right time, the right business. The second is delivery chapter. This is where our traditional procurement sits. You'd love it. It's fantastic. This is where category management, sourcing, operational efficiency sit. And then we have the chapter which mixes it up a little bit. This is where I sit, insights and enablement. So the enablement side is where our contracting teams, our analytics teams, et cetera, sit. I sit in an insights part. And so we have different parts to that. But what we're really looking at is, how do we look at problems differently? So we've got a few different pieces of that. One is the solutions. So when we talk about category and procurement, we always take the view of category management. I manage this spend. I figure out what needs to be done. We still have that. That's still important. We have a solutions team now, insights and solutions. And they say, what's your problem? How do I solve it? Yeah? They build the scope around the problem rather than starting with the scope and finding problems. That's the basic difference. Me and my team, we work across all of these to deliver this in agile ways. Networks is a really important piece, and this is something that, this is how we get the work done. This is how we've decentralized some of our decision-making, et cetera. So I'll talk about it a little bit more, but this also, has been a real thing that we had to refine. Chapters is where we live, networks is where we work, yeah? This brings the planning together across the different functions, across the different teams, and squads is our project teams by a fancy name. Let's talk about networks a little bit. This is one of the things organizationally we've done differently. I won't go into it too much now, just a flavor of it. But one of the problems we had to solve was we weren't speaking the same language, and we had conflict amongst the chapters. So what we found was we're so fluid now. We're creating teams around problems all the time. Yeah, all the time we're creating new teams around problems. And the same problem has different teams depending on where we go into business. But we don't have this common language to get to. We have our big procurement scorecard that we all work on. But that doesn't mean as much to all areas of the business. So our networks is how we solve that. So what we've tried to do with the networks is break out the resource, what we do with our time, from the organizational hierarchy. And so we've clustered all of our teams with people. If you have a problem for a certain area of the business, you're probably going to have 85% of the people you need, no matter what the problem is. And they sit together. And they have cross-functional core teams that sit, and they drive the 90-day planning using outcome-based planning principles. They also form part of our extended leadership team. So our leadership team then sets the direction and the roadmap. That's translated into these cross-functional groups, which then say, these are the things that will deliver the value to it, and they control the resourcing. As a line manager, you have to be deferential to the network in principle for the resourcing. This doesn't work like that all the time in practice, but that's essentially the idea, and that's certainly how we've tried to empower them. So they have the prioritization to deliver, they understand the core procurement work, and then they deliver the outcomes. They also translate those customer outcomes. When you have a centralized function, you have a centralized scorecard. So they have their own areas where they actually translate customer-specific outcomes at a lower level. And they get the right balance of our time between what we would see at global areas versus what they see a little bit closer. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about Agile working example in squads in different areas. And this is where you'll see some of the themes that we have in the past. This is also what I personally have spent a lot of time on. So if you think of above, that's how we work, apply Agile principles as an organization. But when you get down to really working on a problem, I have three kind of use cases here. Cross-functional within Roche, cross-functional with suppliers before they're selected. That's where we talk about LAP. And the last one is cross-functional with suppliers after they've selected. And it feels and looks different in those different use cases. So cross-functional within Roche, this is where we start to put Scrum teams together around particular problems. And they can be in traditional areas like this Project Condo. This is something that we've done in our Genentech and marketing and sales to say, how do we actually drive an integrated customer experience when we work with 60 different agencies? You can't integrate anything with 60 different people. You explain yourself 60 different times. So we've moved to a different approach, less suppliers, but they are custom holding companies picked from all the different agencies built around the Roche needs. Yeah? We split this then. We had the product owner was actually from the business, and we had these three different topics. We had marketing operations in there. We had ourselves in there. We had different pieces of procurement in there. And we had actually the marketers, the brand leads also within there. I think we did this project with kind of those three different views. I think that's the real difference. And instead of having procurement do it and then you hand over to transition, I explained it in three ways when we were starting this out, right? One is we have one part of this group really saying, how do we select the right supplier? Yeah? This is planning for the wedding. Everybody loves planning for the wedding. It's an exciting day. The second is planning the transition. Yeah? So how do you actually move from 60 to 4? Yeah? That is serious pain. It does not end after the contract happens. Actually, how do you actually get to that new state? This is the new couples moving into each other's houses, right? Where does the toothbrush go? And the final one is, as I say, life after the wedding. Yeah? This is where it really happens. Yeah? So getting all those views in the different teams, and we've had to adapt procurement, Scrum for procurement a lot. Because it's just different. It's just different to doing it in IT. Using design thinking in procurement is different to doing it in marketing. You have to adapt it. We have so many more dependencies, so many more people. So we've had to adapt Scrum to get this right. Same thing with design thinking here. I won't go into it, but these personas and customer needs, we use a lot of design thinking in our solutions team to understand, okay, well, how do we actually understand a problem? And one example here is, how do we actually understand what's happening in our labs? And what do we do with that data? And how do we make this openly available for others? And we created all these personas. And this is really where we're trying to create scope and use cases that are way beyond procurement. The second here, I won't go into it too much because I think Mirko and the others have talked about it. It's selecting the right supplier, cross-functional with the supplier. So we've done this. You saw our use case over there. We're doing it right now. We're trying to embed this as an option. Yeah. How do we actually select suppliers using this agile techniques in collaboration? So I won't go into that because I think you've seen it. The last one I would say is after the supplier is contracted. The old procurement head in BP, the oil company, once said to us, in procurement we have something called supplier relationship management. And for that, it's all about how you manage the relationship after. This is where the collaboration happens, et cetera. And he said, you know what? Supplier relationship management is just like Hawaii. Everybody loves it, and nobody's ever been there, right? So that's kind of what it feels like. This is the area we haven't done as well as I would have liked yet. So we do have some great examples. This hypotheses-led sprint is something where we put core Scrum teams, which included the suppliers. This was in the contractor space. We took our managed service provider, and we actually got them in with people in my team and people in different areas of procurement. And then we went in our diagnostics division, and we identified, out of all these different ideas, including the ones bottom up, which one's right for you, locally, right here, right now. We could go from landing in a place with those 3 people, and we would then create a new Scrum team very quickly with somebody on the ground, the local people and culture, the local business people, sometimes finance, whoever it was that kind of knew the problem locally. But we had those traveling people that went across the different functions. We could go from, identify what is the right thing, what is the right impact, and how do we have an 80% view on what that could look like within about a week and a half. Yeah, very quickly and very, very tailored. That worked really well, but it doesn't always work well. Yeah, it doesn't always work well. So what is our lessons learned? I think for us, when trying to do this across organizations, either before, after, during, et cetera, and also within the organization, for us, agility needs structure. Yeah, it did need structure. So the networks, we had a lot of chance to say everybody chooses whatever they want. To be honest, it didn't work. It didn't work. For us, we needed some structure to get people there. I think the second is the approach is all of this stuff. So our team, we use outcome-based planning, behavioral sciences, design thinking, agile, all within procurement-led things. It does work, it can work. But it can't work if you take IT and you talk IT. It can't work if you take marketing and sales and you talk marketing and sales. Yeah? You have to adapt it. And I think the other one here is important. So to practice what you preach before you preach it. If you're in a business function as a business leader, this is like something that we do in our team all the time. You'll be a better patient, or you'll be a better doctor if you've also been a patient. Don't go out and talk about portfolio and OKRs and all this stuff. Don't talk about design thinking if you're not using it on yourself. Yeah? Like our whole team setup, my team setup, we run through portfolio and outcome-based planning. We did our design thinking to create our strategies. Because you know what, when you go there, that's how you decide whether the framework's relevant or not, Agile people, you can be the same as project managers. Sometimes it's all about the template, yeah? It's not. And to be on the other side of that, do it on yourself and do it constantly on yourself, yeah? One big question we don't have an answer to. What does progression in a flat organization look like? we're trying to figure this out. This, if you asked us across the organization, is probably one of our biggest challenges. And we don't have an answer right now. I think the last two networks within the organization, I think we will go to beyond the organization, definitely. But some of those traditional collaboration challenges, they're still there. Yeah, they are still there. You know, understand, it works really, really well when there's something to gain, when you're selecting the supplier. Life after the wedding is more difficult, yeah? And we're still trying to figure that out. How do we incentivize people? And I think you do have to assume good intent, and you do have to have trust. It's really easy to say that. It's a lot harder to do it. And I think the last one probably goes to the people who stood up first, which is those giving Agile to organizations. I think Agile can be a brand, but most people just want to get stuff done, yeah? They just want to get stuff done. So I've been in situations where you're just saying, you know what? Progress, don't let the great be the enemy of the good. And you know, talk somebody's language. Assume good intent, right? Assume procurement want to change. You know, Agile people, you can be as judgmental as the rest of us, yeah? Honestly. So we all have to forget that if we're going to collaborate together. On the procurement side, we got to forget it, just like we said it. And on your side, you also have to forget it, yeah? I won't go into this very much, but I think Mirko liked me to do what I think will be coming next. I think moving beyond the art of the deal is that collaboration. I do think this can happen, and I can see it happening. Second is procurement for good, not just goods. So actually, how do we solve problems like sustainability? We're doing this. Actually, we just got pinged on the chat earlier with somebody in the team, and they're saying the supplier wants to use outcome-based planning for how we solve our carbon challenge, and they're super excited, right? So I think, you know, especially when you can have an anchor on something, even after you've selected the supplier, like carbon, and we're leading on the supplier-based targets initiatives within our organization. This is a huge challenge, which is something that people really get excited about on both sides of the organization. And AI disruption, I actually do see this as becoming reality very, very soon. We're already playing in this right now. Even in our team, we're just looking at AI as negotiation coaches, et cetera. So this will happen. We don't know what it's going to look like, and I don't really know what it means for all this collaboration, to be honest. But I do think it's coming, and I think it's coming relatively fast.
Thanks so much. In time, I appreciate it. Being Swiss, right? So Colm lives in Switzerland as well, so you might be familiar with being in time. So are there any questions? I don't want to stretch lunch too much, but I think we definitely could go for questions. Yes, please.
My question is around capability and how you supported your teams to uplift their capability during the transition.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, all right, cancel lunch. So, I mean, this is not done by any stretch. And you know, you talk about this is mindsets and behaviors and capability. That is absolutely changing, right? And all of these things are new, yeah? I think, to be honest, we also had to create teams around this. So my team as well is really based on that. So getting that into the organization, I think. So creating teams around this, creating capabilities around this does need dedicated time, yeah, and probably needs some organizational changes. I think that's one. I think the second is mindsets and behaviors. It's so frustrating to me because, and like I get it, it's true, yeah? It's the answer to everything. It's the answer to all the 5 whys, right? You know, we had the problem setting, why, and it all comes down to mindsets and behaviors. Yeah, that's true. But it's actually really hard to solve. And it's not just by releasing something on an internet site. These are our new mindsets and behaviors. You've got to change it every day, right? And that's why I would go back to then how would I do it, and also my team changing and me changing, is do it on yourself, really. Do it on yourself, yeah? And try things.